Hello, my name is Deb Disney. I'm a doctoral student at Allen College in Waterloo, Iowa, and this is a presentation for my organizational change class. At the beginning of this class, I was asked to focus on a proposed change for my campus. My focus has been on cultivating a kinder culture. Methodist College underwent a radical leadership change in May of 2017. Now, with our new interim chancellor president at the helm, we're trying to heal the culture of fear and mistrust that was prevalent for 10 years. If I were asked to dream big for our college, I'd love to know what it would be like if each individual was as eager to come to work as they are to go home. I would love to know what it would be like if each individual was as eager for the work week to start as they are for the weekend to arrive. My focus has been on using Dr. Mary Gentile's Giving Voice to Values in order to enhance the communication and sense of safety and civility in our campus culture. What might the culture of our college look and feel like if more of us felt empowered and were skillful and practiced enough to voice and act on our values effectively? Dr. Mary Gentile spent 10 years teaching at Harvard Business School and then launched GVV with the Aspen Institute and the Yale School of Management. Her GVV Center is now housed and based at the University of Virginia Darden School of Business. This assignment is focused on creating a communication plan for this proposed change. In this presentation, I will address the phases of the communication plan, influence strategies, the potential role of social media, and conclude with a summary. There are 4 phases in a communication plan: pre-change, developing the need for change, midstream change, and confirming the change. Let's look at the pre-change phase first. In the textbook for this class, Causey, Deska, and Ingalls encouraged the change leader to link the change to goals and priorities of the college. Methodist College has a strategic plan for 2016 to 2021, and it lists advancing a culture of teaching and learning as the #1 strategic goal. The study of correlation between a civil culture and student persistence and satisfaction is outside the scope of this project, but anecdotally we all know that incivility can get in the way of teaching and learning. Additionally, Causey, Deska, and Ingalls urged the change leader to seek approval for the change from the leadership. I first discussed this change with the interim chancellor president, Dr. Deborah Garrison, who actually had already heard Dr. Gentile speak at Widener University several years ago. Dr. Garrison discussed this plan with her executive leadership team, then personally purchased copies of the GVV book for all 24 members of the senior leadership team, which is comprised of deans and directors. She and I presented the idea to the SLT, and I surveyed them after the presentation and had overwhelming agreement to move forward with bringing Dr. Gentile to our campus in January 2018 for the all-college meeting. There's also a plan to bring her back a number of times in the next 2 years to get her guidance for how to make this plan sustainable for the future. The second phase is called Developing the Need for Change. In the textbook, Causey, Deska, and Ingalls talked about the importance of creating enthusiasm when explaining the need for the change, to provide a rationale, to reassure employees, and to clarify the steps of what will be involved in the change process. For changing culture, I believe that pull tactics will be more effective than push tactics. I hope to pull people into the vision, arouse their enthusiasm for Dr. Gentile's visit, appeal to our common values and ideals about how our culture could be. This will require the participation of most, if not all, employees as we try to make this change sustainable over time. So we want to set the stage for her January visit and create some enthusiasm for the treat of having a world-renowned speaker share some time with us. I hope you can pause this recording now and see this short 5 or 6 minute YouTube video, which is my rationale for the need for the change. I plan on emailing this to all employees 2 weeks before an all-college luncheon, which happens middle of December. So first part of December, I plan to email this to employees, and they'll have a chance to enter a drawing for a $100 Amazon gift card, which I hope is incentive enough for them to actually watch this video. And another part of this phase in the communication plan is clarifying steps. So there's this timeline that on December 13th we have an all-college luncheon with pizza, activity focused on each person understanding the relevance of every other person. In Lisa Preston's presentation for this assignment, she will probably talk about the metaphor of the importance of all ingredients of pizza. So that's the tie-in there. And then on January 9th, Dr. Gentili will visit, give a presentation at the all-college meeting, and then there are 3 or 4 other meetings with important committees set up for her to give us guidance throughout the day. And then she's also committed to returning a few times over the next 2 years to train the trainers. Members of the Values and Action Committee have committed to being trainers so that we can make this project sustainable over time. And the third phase of a communication plan is midstream change. Causey, Deska, and Ingalls talked about factors to consider midstream in the communication plan for the change. Informing people of progress, obtaining feedback on attitudes and issues, challenging misconceptions, and clarifying new organizational roles, structures, and systems. I would prefer that our actual midstream plan be a plan that's created jointly with the Values and Action Committee. However, for the purposes of this assignment, here are some of my ideas. For keeping people informed of our progress, I think we could make a Giving Voice to Values website and have quarterly emails from the Values and Action Committee to keep people up to date. Because communication is a two-way street, we also want to obtain feedback on attitudes and issues. And so periodically, maybe semi-annually, send out some survey monkeys. And based on what we hear in those surveys, we would want to challenge any misconceptions. So perhaps in the subsequent quarterly emails, we could include a section called We Heard You. We heard you say such and such, and here's some more information. And then over time, clarifying new organizational roles, structures, and systems. I think it could be helpful to have copies of the GVV book in the library. And part of the GVV process is having 3-person teams for scripting and practicing. So there's a person who is trying to give voice to his or her values. There's a person listening to that, allowing them to practice. And then there's a third person who is an observer. And in that process, I think the Values and Action members who are going to be trained as trainers will possibly also be volunteers to create those teams for people who are wanting to script and practice their messages. And I think another piece of this is going to be stress management tools and emotional intelligence tools, which we can create and give in presentation form or record them to make them available on the Desire to Learn platform. And then the fourth phase of a communication plan is called confirming the change. Again, in actuality, I'll defer to the plans of the values and action team when we get to this stage. But for this assignment, I think we can use the Values in Action website as the vehicle for informing employees of the success. We'll need to decide what survey instrument to use. I would suggest using the civility survey that was developed by Dr. Cynthia Clark to assess the culture pre and post GVV. Ideally, the pre-GVV survey would be completed at the all-college meeting in January before Dr. Gentile's presentation, and the post-survey could be administered at the all-college meeting in January of 2019, 1 year later. Whether there's much difference in the culture based on the results of the survey, I think we could still celebrate our efforts toward change, perhaps by borrowing from the pizza theme and having a pizza bar where everyone would make their own pizzas. The final aspect of confirming the change is to prepare the college for the next change, which at this point I have no idea what that will be. Stay tuned. Okay, so now we move into talking about influence strategies. Causey, Deska, and Ingalls emphasized that buy-in on the part of change recipients will not occur just because change leaders think the change is important. For that reason, they listed several influence strategies. Since my proposed change pertains to culture, some of the influence strategies, such as manipulation and explicit coercion, implicit coercion, would seem to me to be counterproductive. I believe the more effective influence strategies for this change plan would be education and communication, participation and involvement, and facilitation and support. In an article by Lee Taylor, a change consultant was quoted. Leland Kaiser is the change consultant. And he said, storytelling is the most powerful organizational change strategy I know of. And this piqued my curiosity regarding storytelling, so I asked Dr. Gentile about it. And she directed me to an article by Goober called The Four Truths of the Storyteller. I'm now also reading a book called The Storytelling Animal and a book called The Healing Art of Storytelling to gather more direction regarding how storytelling can influence employees to buy into the need for this proposed culture change. In fact, the pizza idea sprang from this idea of storytelling. And I believe that as we continue with our midstream communications, we will also end up encouraging employees to share their success stories. Regarding the other influence strategies, our Values in Action Committee has decided that membership will rotate every couple of years, and this will create new energy and ideas and allow all employees to feel part of the change. And as the Values in Action members get trained in GVV, we will likely volunteer to be part of the 3-person rehearsal team that is a factor in the scripting and practicing process. So this support and guidance hopefully will help alleviate any fear and anxiety of employees who choose to try giving voice to their values. And a third aspect of a communication plan is a potential role of social media. This could be a little tricky for us since the discussions that occur using giving voice to values could be of a sensitive nature. but we can certainly create some enthusiasm for the project by sharing photos of our celebrations and trainings. Josh Bernoff is a vice president at Forrester Research. Recently, Harvard Business Review interviewed him on how to be a social media change agent. He discussed the book that he and Charlene Lee had written entitled Groundswell: Winning in a World Transformed by Social Technologies. This book, which I've not yet read, offers evidence-based strategies regarding the power of using blogs, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube in organizational change efforts. In the video interview, Bernoff lists 5 items, including start small, have support high up in the organization, seek precedence, which he said meant pointing to the successes that have been seen at other organizations who used social media, make friends, and measure your success. If the Values and Action Committee chooses to use social media as part of our communication plan, we can ask the librarian to find a copy of this book for us so we can more fully harness the power of these tools. In summary, my organizational change project is focused on cultivating a kinder culture at Methodist College, primarily using Dr. Gentile's approach called Giving Voice to Values. This presentation examined a possible communication plan. Regarding the phases of the communication plan, the pre-change plan has already occurred. The next phase, communicating the need for the change, will evolve over the next 2 months in conjunction with the Values and Action Committee, and the last 2 phases, which were labeled Midstream Plan and Confirming the Change, will be established by the Values and Action Committee over the next 2 years. We'll utilize a variety of influence strategies, and I believe storytelling and participation will be prominent strategies given the nature of the proposed change. And if we decide to use social media to tell our story, we've identified resources to provide guidance with that. Ultimately, it will be important to remember that communication is a two-way street and to be intentional about receiving communication as well. Thank you.